This is the King's Court on Arena Sportsnet, presented by American Grappler.
I've got more swagger than Mick Jagger, more sex appeal than Vince Neil.
All guests from all walks of life share their time with the King of Connecticut.
They are dreaming of just one night with a man such as myself.
Any and everything goes.
I am the King of Connecticut. I was raised with class and sophistication.
And now, from Norwalk, Connecticut, weighing in at 230 pounds, if George Clooney had muscles, they'd call him the King of Connecticut. The one, the only, Matt Granahan.
It is the pernicious purveyor of preposterous pomposity, manipulating the minuscule minds of the masses of miscreants. I am your host, the suntan Superman, Matt Granahan, and I am joined by my producer, the one and only Snowman, Brian Snow. How you doing tonight, Snowman?
I'm doing well, Your Majesty. How are you tonight?
I am doing wonderful. I was just reading a text here from Dan the Beast Severn, and we were talking about his comedy episode.
Yeah.
He just sent me a text here, and his text simply stated, when you are the beast or the king, women go down faster than a shot of Fireball in the hand of Lindsay Lohan. I was just reading that from the Beast. So pretty entertaining.
You know the Beast always has something up. You know the Beast always has something up his sleeve.
Absolutely, he does, and he is quite the jokester. He's got several jokes. I've stolen a number of his jokes over the years, and I don't believe it. It's a good topic. You know, this whole thing of stealing jokes, and it was Joe Rogan was saying that Carlos, whatever his name was, Mencia was stealing jokes. You know, jokes are old. A lot of jokes are old.
Yeah, man.
And they've been around for a long time, man.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really consider that stealing.
No, I don't consider that stealing either, because if that's the case, I've stolen and used a lot of jokes from my favorite comedian, as you know, who is George Carlin, for years doing my show.
Yeah, I love George Carlin. I loved him. He had some great material. Now, if someone was to go on their show and say, I am the pernicious purveyor of preposterous pomposity,
then we got issues.
The minuscule minds of the masses miscreants, I might take excessive.
Then we got issues. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I think the whole idea, I like to take jokes, and I like to innovate them and put my own spin on them.
Right.
I made a post on my social media about Super Bowl 51 coming up,
mm-hmm.
and I mentioned that my nephew had paid $1,500 for the seats, and he was looking for a replacement because it was on the same night as his wedding
right.
was supposed to be. And I said that anyone who was interested, that the service was at noon at St. Philip's Church across the street from my old house of worship.
Yeah.
And that her name was Julia. She was 5'2", very flexible, a gymnast.
Uh-huh.
Very perky boobs, a full C-cup, and I threw in there that of course she was an attractive woman and he had good taste because
mm-hmm.
this is my nephew we're talking about.
Right.
You know, and she'd be the one wearing the white dress. So I kind of took the original and I jazzed it up a little bit, and a lot of people didn't get the inside joke, and the inside joke is pretty interesting.
Oh, I caught it. I caught it.
Across the street from St. Philip's Church in Norwalk, Connecticut. It was featured on Richard Bay's show. It was featured on Maury Povich show. And I put my old house of worship. There was a place, and I've talked about bouncing there many years ago. There was a place called the Zebra Club. and it was a gentleman's club, and it was known as having the most attractive women. And you're talking about Long Island Sound, big money down there, Norwalk, Connecticut.
Yeah.
Norwalk wasn't a real rich town, but it was surrounded by all money. So you're talking about just some 5-star gals. So that was the inside joke there. But Brian, did you catch the Tito Ortiz Chael Sonnen fight this past weekend?
I didn't get a chance. I was swamped with basketball this past weekend, my friend.
Well, of course, we did the pre-show with Bellator Superstar King Mo that we aired last week, and Curran Jacobs, who's going to be coming on here in a little bit today on today's show. And we all three of us predicted that the bad guy would beat the bad boy, and that Chael Sonnen would defeat the Huntington Beach bad boy Tito Ortiz. And that's not what happened.
No.
You know, a lot of fans were crying sour grapes, and they were saying the fix is in, man. The fix is in. And
don't you
I
love
when
that
a lot
happens?
of these fans that have never set foot on a mat or in a cage,
Exactly.
make all these comments. Most of the time, knowing what the hell they're talking about.
Here's the thing, sir. Don't you love it when people think they know what they're talking about and they haven't, as you said, set foot on a mat or trained or anything like that, and they always want to cry fix when they don't know what's going on the inside. Last June, on my show, when I said the same thing about the Cavaliers and the Warriors, you know, people just lit me up, and I actually loved it because I was able to prove them wrong. They said, "Oh, you don't know the fix. You don't know the fix wasn't in. Oh no, you don't think they wanted to celebrate in Cleveland and give LeBum James a championship in Cleveland? You didn't think the fix was on for that? Come on."
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you know, if you're gonna, and this is one thing that Phil Baroni said, which was great in his post. First thing is they said that when Chael was working for that Darce show, that Tito gave him a signal by tapping his hand, to release the choke. Mm-hmm. And if you've ever been in or any kind of a combat situation, if you want to work a fight, you don't have to do that. As Phil pointed out, you don't have to do anything blatant like that. So they were just looking for things. But the thing that really got people, and what we're going to talk to Curran about here in a little bit, is everybody approaches things from a jiu-jitsu mindset. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, jiu-jitsu has always looked at against neck cranks. Yeah. And a lot of in leg locks over the years. Mm-hmm. Leg locks and toe holds and heel hooks and stuff like that. But always looked at neck cranks and banning them, or only high belts could use them, and they wouldn't even know how to use them. So, it was interesting. I heard Bass Rutten told a story. He was coaching it, and he was at the jiu-jitsu school, and the guy let him as a guest coach when he was off for the day. And when the guy came back, he had taught them one of his neck cranks, and the students were all tapping each other with this thing. And the instructor was so pissed off at Boss because he taught them the neck crank. And that's why a lot of these fans were like, oh, the choke wasn't in. It wasn't sunk in. And Curran did an excellent video, and we're going to talk to him about that, where he explained that neck crank. Mm-hmm. And Curran's going to talk about how that relates to the CWA, the Catch Wrestling Association, that he had talked about, and he had talked about his upcoming grappling match or catch wrestling rules match, potentially with Josh Barnett, with the babyface egomaniac, the Warmeister we talked about on that show, on that episode. So we're going to have Curran on here in a little bit, but I wanted to tell, if it's okay with you, something personal, because I know you've mentioned it, that you are potentially going to embark on the old grapefruit diet.
I am.
Ryan.
I am, sir.
Man, I told you about that grapefruit diet, and man, I'm telling you, that will give you tremendous energy.
I'm starting to feel the difference already, because I talked to you, I talked to a couple of friends of mine who were trainers, and I went and weighed myself, and in the last 4 years, I'm now under 350 pounds for the first time in 4 years. And a lot of people don't see.
Wow, how much weight did you lose?
225.
How much weight, in other words, did you lose?
In the last 4 years, like I
Not
said.
how much weight did you want to use, but how much weight did you lose so far on the grapefruit diet?
Well, I just started it recently. I can feel the energy difference. I won't weigh myself until next week, but it's the fact that I'm under a certain marker that's got me excited.
That's
and
great.
then
Yeah.
I talked to you, and you gave me these suggestions, and I immediately jumped all over them. As I said, I won't weigh myself
tell you what
until
the
next week.
diet is. It's an old weight cut trick, and it's an old wrestling weight cutting trick, and it's basically grapefruit has an ingredient in it that actually cuts fat, and grapefruits will fill you up. Grapefruit juice, especially. Now you got to have the 100% grapefruit juice.
Yeah.
Not pink grapefruit juice. It's got to be the real gold grapefruit juice.
Right.
And what I told Brian was, when you wake up, have a protein bar, have a whole grapefruit, and have a tall glass of grapefruit juice.
Mm-hmm.
And then twice throughout the day, because you want to have smaller meals, have a glass of grapefruit juice and a protein bar.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the keys to it is have your last meal of the day at 4 p.m. and have some grilled chicken, and you're going to get the theme here.
Yeah.
A tall glass of grapefruit juice and a whole grapefruit.
Mm-hmm.
And it might sound extreme. You're eating the same thing, every day, day in and day out. You can mix it up maybe with different kind of protein bars, or have grilled steak instead of grilled chicken. But the whole point is the stopping eating earlier in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get hungry at night, and you're going to get hungry at night, have a grapefruit or have a tall glass of grapefruit juice. And if you'll be amazed at how much a tall glass of grapefruit juice actually fills you up.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
because I felt that
I've had
first
a
couple of days.
people, Brian, I got to tell you, man, I've had a couple of buds that did this and did it for a month. And every time you do it for a month, not only are you losing weight and gaining muscle, you're having more energy levels higher.
Yeah, it is. I did it this past weekend when I knew I had 8 games in 2 days, and I zipped right through them with no problem. The only time my body really crashed because I did so much at once was Saturday night, halfway through the last game. But as you said, the energy level is there. I can feel the difference already.
Absolutely. And being in the alcoholic beverage world, I had a couple buds who did this. They said, "Can I drink?" And I said, "Absolutely." I said, "What you do is you get vodka and mix it with grapefruit juice.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to drink, vodka and grapefruit juice. And man, you'll get to love grapefruit. And you get your energy from your carbs, but there's something about grapefruit that it gives you energy, and it's cutting that fat. It just makes you feel good, man.
The only thing I have to get used to over the long term is the taste, because I haven't had grapefruit on a consistent basis until now. It's just going to take me eating it and drinking the grapefruit juice and getting used to the taste, because anyone who's had grapefruit knows, for the most part, it's very bitter. But at the same time, I'm really starting to see the benefits that you told me about. It's His Majesty, the King of Connecticut, Matt Granahan, as we open this week's episode of The King's Court, that you can hear every Thursday night, and we're kicking this off a week before the Super Bowl because of who we have coming on this evening. And you know what, Matt? There's one episode I want to request that you do because we're changing our format just a bit. Remember when you came on my show and you talked about how these professional sports leagues, and particularly the NFL, is fleecing the fans? I would love for you,
taxpayers. Yeah, absolutely.
I would love for you during the spring to come on and talk about that again at length. This is a personal request from me. And
I would love to. I love to. You know why, Brian? Because I want to open people's eyes up about the NFL. I mean, they are literally a state-sponsored monopoly.
And look at the stadiums that are being built. Look at the stadiums that are being built. The recent flap with the San Diego Chargers now becoming the Los Angeles Chargers, the centerpiece of that was that the Chargers never got a new stadium, and they're going to get one in Los Angeles, and more to the point, share one in Los Angeles with the Rams. I mean, the Staples Center houses 3 teams right now, the Kings, the Lakers, and the Clippers. The United Center houses 2, the Blackhawks and the Bulls. And it's just like you're seeing these new arenas pop up all over the place, and the people that help build the arenas with their money, the taxpayers, won't even have a chance to get a seat in the house.
Yeah, it's horrendous. And, it's an example of what happens when you don't have to pay for it yourself. And the way that these politicians, they are so afraid of losing a sports franchise, particularly with the NFL. I mean, it's horrendous. And the NFL is also one of the things people don't realize about them is that they are actually set up as a tax-exempt entity like a church. I mean, I called it the Church of Roger Goodell, who makes close to $40 million a year. It's insane.
It's very insane. But one Thursday night, I'd love for you to open with that, and we'll talk about that during one of our openings, and just like you said, open people's eyes to how big of a monopoly that is. Not to mention the product on the field is god awful right now. It's not the same as it was when I was watching in the 80s when we had real doggone football players, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things too is these players, they all have their own individual agents, and it's ridiculous when you think about the involvement that the taxpayers have in it and that the government has in it. I talked about the USFL, which everybody forgets about. They tried to be a competitor, and they were a real competitor.
Yeah, they were.
And you can't compete on a level playing field. And the analogy that I gave was with us as a beer and wine distributor, if one of our competitors had their warehouse paid for and their trucks paid for, and we were expected to still be able to compete, it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
No, that's not free enterprise. That's the corporate welfare.
Yeah.
That's the a state-sponsored monopoly, basically.
That's all that is.
With the tax-exempt status, they're basically a monopoly. I mean, it's horrendous.
It is horrendous.
So, football fans are blind to that, though. They're blind to that.
They're blind to it because they love watching the action on the field, and they're not privy to what goes on behind the scenes.
No, absolutely not. And that's one thing when you approached me about doing this show last year, I wanted to bring that up and bring up things that you're not going to hear on ESPN or on Fox Sports.
Look, you already know how I feel about ESPN, and I feel my network is the anti-ESPN, which is why more people are starting to pick it up and more people are starting to listen. And speaking of listen and speaking of watch, we got something in the works, don't we, with this show?
We got a few guests coming on. One guest that's going to come on, she's going to come on for a segment, is Michelle Rodriguez, an actress that I know who some people may remember from Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
She's promised to come on for a segment for this season. I've got Steve Nelson, who a lot of people insiders of the MMA will know, but God, Steve Nelson used to run the USWF, which was a promotion out in Amarillo, Texas. And he got around the regulations for MMA by running it as a pro wrestling promotion, and it was a complete shoot. You know, it was complete legitimate, but there were slightly different rules than MMA. And God, the stars that came out of that promotion, like Evan Tanner, like Dan the Beast Severn, like Randy Couture, Dan Henderson, all these guys, Dave Monet, all these guys, these champions from UFC that fought for that promotion. And it's just such an incredible story. And, of course, his dad was Gordy Nelson, one of the old shooters from pro wrestling. And he's got stories from Japan with the UWFI and all that. It's just so many great stories that he's going to have. And we're branching out from the world of MMA and pro wrestling and making this an entertainment show, as I talked about. And Michelle Rodriguez is going to be an example of that. I've got some other actors and actresses that will be confirming with me here for season 2, so stay tuned.
And what got all this started when I approached Matt about doing the King's Court, they pulled a fast one on me 2 years ago on my morning show. That's when I officially met Matt and we became friends and we just took off and started working together. Last season of the King's Court was absolutely great. As mentioned, we got Curran Jacobs coming on tonight. Matter of fact, let's kick this over to a commercial. And when we come back, Matt and Curran will be together again, folks.
Let's say real fast, let's say that Curran, speaking of actors, he's a great actor, and he's got the movie Frogman coming up.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait to see Frogman and can't wait to have him on. After the break, His Majesty and Curran Jacobs. This, my friends, is the King Court on this Thursday night.
Let me tell you about American Grappler Wrestling and MMA Outfitters. American Grappler makes shirts that honor the American wrestling and combat sports tradition unlike any other brand on the market today. And I'm going to tell you a little personal story. American Grappler just did a tribute shirt to my coach, my mentor, one of my best friends, the legendary Billy Wicks, who just passed on. And all of the profits of this shirt are going to Billy Wicks' family. That's what kind of a brand this is. They are not just an advertiser on the King's Court. They are not just an advertiser on the Arena Sports Network. They have become family. And let me tell you something else about American Grappler. Their shirts are of the finest quality. I've been training in these shirts and wearing them proudly for years. Support American wrestling heritage. Go to AmericanGrappler.us today. You'll be happy you did.
Today's program is brought to you by Cleaver Supplements, the official presenting sponsor of Arena Sportsnet. Our team is excited to provide you with an impeccable online shopping experience and remains available to assist at any time. We have natural supplements such as our Super Fat Burner, our Carnitine Stack, the famous Swole Serum for your workouts, and much more. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, do not hesitate to contact us via telephone or email, and one of our experienced team members will get back to you. Cleaver Supplements, pure supplements for when genetics are just not enough.
We are back. It is the Suntan Superman. And we have our guest on the line, and as we record this, it is Sunday afternoon, and my lovely Brazilian gal, Miss Rosemary from the gym, just left. She cooked me a delicious meal for the king here, and we burned off them calories in the most enjoyable way, put it that way. That beautiful, beautiful Latin ass, 26 years old, far younger than the king, and her husband just not giving her what she meat. So she had to go back to the hubby, and I call that Great Sunday. My mama used to always cook a big meal for me every Sunday. Even when I was graduated college, I would go over to my parents' house. My mama would cook me a big meal fit for a king. So I'm telling you, it's a good Sunday. I got a delicious Blowing Rock raspberry wheat beer in front of me. And these guys are a new brewery that we just picked up for the coast, which we'll be representing on the coast. I've talked to them about being a sponsor here on the King's Court, and they seem down. So just kind of to whet your appetites on this Sunday afternoon. When you're listening to this, it's going to be Thursday when we launch this episode, and we have our guest on the line. And before we do, I want to mention that I got from Dan the Beast 7 today his foreword for my new book, Too Handsome for Hollywood. And it is a very humorous book. I share it with our guest. I share it with my producer, Brian Stone, the foreword from the Beast. A lot of people don't know his sense of humor. You do if you've ever seen our stand-up shows and listened to his episode of 1 Hour of Comedy here on the Arena Sports Network. And without further ado, we welcome back once again to the show, to the King's Court, the one and only Curran Jacobs. I'm here with my producer, Brian Snow. How are you guys doing?
Good, my brother. How's the king feeling today other than having the most delicious meal on his Sunday? Sounds like you had an amazing day, my man.
Yeah, I got up early, went to the gym, had this gal, Miss Rosemary was there with me at the gym, and she came over to the estate, to the King's Castle, and now I'm just going to be relaxing and recording with you and Brian the rest of the day. We were supposed to have the one and only Prince of Persia, Kamal Shalarus, my old buddy, on the show here. You know, hoping he's all right. You know, if you watch CNN, you might think he got deported. But we will have to see. We will have to see what's going on, because he was supposed to be ready at 5 p.m. today on this Sunday. He was unavailable. Shocking news. Now, Curran, we had set this up in the last segment, Brian and I. You did a great demo on the Tito Ortiz Chael Sonnen fight. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was shocking. I couldn't believe my eyes. I expected a lot more out of Chael. He kind of went out there and had the deer in the headlights look, and Tito went for his leg, and he went straight for that guillotine. Didn't work out for him. Tito ended up on top, and then the controversial thing happened. There's a lot of people saying that Tito Ortiz got him in a rear naked choke, which is just baffling to me. Because, I mean, even Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys are saying, yeah, that was a rear naked choke. The technique was nowhere near close to what a rear naked choke is. So I was kind of shocked that these Jiu-Jitsu players were saying that that's what it was. And even Tito and Chael are calling it that. But that just shows the ignorance over catch wrestling. Now, I heard rumor that Tito Ortiz knows catch wrestling. But, you know, he may know a move or two, but if he really knew catch wrestling, he would actually have said that was a catch wrestling lock he had on Chael. Now, his technique was wrong. His technique was off, but he even admitted that he had a Dan Gable grip on Chael's, across Chael's face, and instead of thrusting his hips as if he was making love and twisting his upper torso to the right, he just squeezed on for until he wanted to pop Chael's head like a zit. And that's why Chael ended up tapping. I mean, Tito is a strong dude. So when he got that lock, instead of doing the appropriate technique to pull off a neck crank, he just squeezed the living hell out of him until Chael tapped. But the appropriate move that Tito used was a neck crank. That was not a rear naked choke.
Absolutely not. Now, I got a few questions for you on that. Did you see? I posted an old interview with Tito Ortiz where he was talking about to Joe Rogan when he was at Cal State Chico, when he called it a cobra choke, and it was a one-arm choke. And I also shared a technique that we do a lot in our clinics. I've done it in the clinics with Dan Severn, and also I always demonstrate that technique in clinics with New York Badass Phil Baroni, but I actually learned that technique from my old wrestling coach, Ken Russell, and we used to call it just a choke pin. And that was, Tito was kind of describing what he called a choke pin, which is a different technique where you turn the neck and you basically suffocate your opponent with your chest.
Yeah, I didn't hear that. I did not hear that interview. I looked at a lot of videos, heard their post-fight interviews, but no, I didn't hear anything about him saying.
Yeah, I tagged you on that one. It was an older one. I'll send it back to you again. It was an older one from Joe Rogan's show. This guy was going back when Tito retired the last time from UFC, which was 3 or 4 years ago, and he was talking about when he finished the Japanese fighter. I don't recall the name, but Joe Rogan said it was a bizarre one-arm choke, and Tito Ortiz said, no, it was not. And he said, I learned that at Cal State Chico. He said we called it the cobra choke, and we used to use it to pin our opponents. In other words, the thing a lot of people don't realize from just amateur wrestling, we used to call things choke pins. We used to call choke pins, and it's kind of like the evolution of wrestling as becomes more and more rules in amateur wrestling. But choke pins are sort of like neck cranks. That what we used to, the old school choke pins.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I had it was before I went to Michigan State, but we had a guy who used to pull that off in his matches. Sometimes he'd get caught by the ref, and other times he wouldn't.
Yeah,
but when
he did.
And
in high school, you're not supposed to turn the neck, but in college, you could turn the neck. So that the choke pin is actually if you catch somebody in choke pin, especially a jiu-jitsu guy that doesn't know what he's in, it's extremely, extremely painful. Extremely painful.
It is, and when you get in it, especially in collegiate match, it makes you give up. It makes you literally just want to flatten your back right out on the mat. Nick Simmons, they called him the East Lansing Strangler. That guy would choke. That guy was notorious for choking his opponents, and it got so bad the refs had to keep an eye because he'd choke his opponents right out while pinning them.
That's right.
So yeah, it's very effective.
Going back to Dave Schultz. Dave Schultz was notorious for that. He was notorious for what they used to call it the Schultz headlock, and he would choke guys out. And then another guy that was pretty notorious for just being a dirty wrestler and using a lot of chokes from UFC. The name is, I'm drawing a blank on the name. I know Phil Baroni fought him a couple times, but I can't think of the name. He was in UFC, and he was in Pride. He's captain of the Greco team now. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't recall.
Shit, it'll come to me. It'll come to me probably as we do this.
I would love to know who taught Dave Schultz. Dave Schultz definitely learned from somebody who knew catch wrestling. I believe there's footage out there right now of him at the Olympics pulling off a double wrist lock. He would pull off standing double. He would roll into it.
Mark Schultz hit that double wrist lock. It was against a Turkish wrestler, and he snapped his arm, broke his arm.
That's right.
Yeah, broke his arm with it. You know what it is, Curran? You know what I think it is? And you could talk. We're going to have my old coach, Ken Russell, on the show, who's in his 60s now. He goes way back in wrestling. In wrestling amateur wrestling has had so many rules evolve over the years that when you get a lot of these older guys, I'm an older guy in my 40s, and I'm talking about even myself, but also older guys. There are less and less rules, and choke pinning was like a thing, especially in the New York area. Like Phil Baroni You know, when he and I were doing clinics together, he was always talking about choke pins, and where you pancake a guy and choke pin him, and he was showing that to little kids. I posted that one on the catch wrestling page where he showed one of those choke pins to little kids. So I think, you know, the evolution of wrestling, that's why the catch wrestling thing is so fascinating, because you and I have talked about this. When you get good wrestlers in those tournaments, they just completely dominate.
They do. I mean, it's our sport, and that's why it's so important that we educate people and we bring this sport back, because after college, wrestlers have 3 avenues. They either become a coach, they pursue Olympic wrestling, or they compete in mixed martial arts. But wrestlers are badass with catch wrestling. And to every Division I wrestler that I have taught or explained what the sport is all about, we go back to what you said. It goes back to there being very few rules. I think it would be 10 times more exciting than watching a collegiate match. No points, just or submission. Could you imagine just letting two dogs loose on each other on the mat, like 2 dogs, no rules, no locking of hands, nothing silly. I mean, I used to love scissor takedowns. That's illegal because it's blowing out people's knees, I guess, or one person had a really bad experience, and now it's banned from college. You can't do scissor takedowns anymore.
I tell you, scissor takedowns is a great example. Let me tell you another one that my buddy Steve Alponi down here, when he was training with me and he was competing in grappling and in MMA, he used to do this thing, and he'd catch guys in it, and it was like, you remember, you know, of course, the wrestling guillotine, and you know, a bow and arrow. So the best way I could explain it is you have a leg hooked like a guillotine, but you come across with a cross face, and you go right across the jaw and turn the neck, so it's a neck crank, and then you lock hands. And what he used to do is he used to take their head and literally the guy would kick themselves in the head with their foot and lock the hands really tight. He won a catch wrestling thing with that in Mississippi. We went down and we both won the belts with this little tournament called Shoot Hook they used to have. It was like 10 years ago. And the guys all sucked, but he was basically just dominating, you know, because he would just come out of college and he was wrestling at Anderson. I was out of shape, and I won the thing too. And he was just dominating. He caught this one kid, and he was just playing with the kid, and he put him in that move, and you could hear the kid squeal, like, ah, ah. You could just hear him freaking squeal, because it was so incredibly painful. Like you talked about, like with the Tito Ortiz thing, he didn't really pop his hips in. But with this technique, you're leg riding, and you're cross-facing, and you're locking hands. And that's just so painful, because it's kind of like a neck crank and a guillotine at the same time, like a wrestling guillotine.
I've said it once and I'll say it again. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is like drowning in water. Catch-as-catch-can wrestling is like getting beaten to death with a sledgehammer. It is a painful grappling art, and I am convinced and more than willing to prove to anyone that catch wrestling is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's kryptonite. Now, if you put me in a Jiu-Jitsu tournament and they like to do this, you want to talk about rule set. The Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappling tournaments have the most ridiculous rule set ever. And when you really look at it, it is anti-catch wrestler. They don't want you to get hurt. They don't want you to get slammed. No being rough. They even frown upon cross faces. The last time I signed up for a tournament in Ohio, and I literally left because I was like, you're telling me that it's inappropriate to cross face my opponent? They're like, oh yeah, you know, just some people consider it poor sportsmanship. I'm like, okay, you guys want to play with each other's feet? Go for it. I've got better things to do. Let me know when you have a no holds barred contest, because I'll show you exactly who dominates on the mat when it comes to grappling and wrestling.
Speaking of feet, they used to not allow leg locks. They used to not allow toe holds. They used to not, you know, any kind of foot locks. There was rules against that also.
It's crazy, man. Look, at this tournament, people were literally going to their ass. They were sitting on their butt, scooting towards their opponent. And if you were the guy on your feet and you backed away from the dude scooting towards you on your butt, you get penalized. So I was like, okay, so you got to play into that game. You got to play into the game. And there's a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys. They just read an article. I wish I could remember his name, saying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu experts who pull guard right away are worthless.
He said, absolutely. And it didn't used to be like that as much in grappling. It's become more and more. Like, because I remember the first grappling tournament I ever competed in was Florida, was in Copa, and it was a lot of wrestling. It was a lot of wrestling on your feet. But then as time went on, you get to like the Naga tournaments and stuff, and the guys just lay on their ass.
Yeah, man, it's unbelievable. It's sad. It's becoming really sissified. I refuse to get on my knees and grapple in my gym at Murcielago. I absolutely refuse, especially when we're going live. Because I tell them,
funny you say that. You know, you stay off your knees because Cody Perkle, who I was just training this week, who you talked to on the phone, his dad, he's been wrestling since he was a little kid, and he just got out of school. He's 21 now, 21 or 22, and he we were at a bar called Old Mill, and the owner John, his son, is really big into wrestling. He wrestles for Derek Strobel, who's a coach here at Lexington High School. And we were sitting there watching matches, and he wanted us to sit there and watch his son's matches and kind of critique them because his dad had wrestled in Maryland. And one of the things, the first thing that I said was, when he's riding on he's on his knees. And what Cody said is, he said, you know what my dad used to do? And my dad used to make me put gravel in my knee pads. So if my knees I'd have to pop right back up.
That's a great technique because when you're on your knees, you're taking all the pressure off of your opponent. So you stay on your toes. You stay on your toes. Even when you're behind your opponent riding them, stay off your knees and apply the pressure on your opponent. So when I'm competing, when I'm going live, rather, with the mixed martial artists in my gym, and we do a roll live, I am off my knees. And I tell them, when are you ever going to start in a fight in the cage on your knees or in a grappling match?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. Earn that. Take your guy down. Get a scramble to where you're on your knees. But no, I start on my feet. And that's why so many Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys absolutely suck at takedowns. Yeah. Every Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt I've ever rolled with couldn't take me down if you gave them $1 million and told them to try.
You know what's funny on that? You know what's funny on that point, and I want to get your perspective on this. It's related to that. Is not with jiu-jitsu, but Brian and I talked about this, and I'm trying to remember what episode. I think it's actually going to be part of the same episode. Yeah, it was when we just did the intro. We were talking about Ronda Rousey and judo, and this was a thing that I said about, and I think a lot. I bet you 95% of fans don't even know this, but judo used to be really big. Like when I got out of college, judo was really big, and like I'm talking like 95. They used to have a lot of wrestlers were going into judo, and my buddy Dave was doing it. So I started going into Kari Judo in Danbury, Connecticut, and wrestlers were just dominating because what we were doing was, and this just relates to Ronda Rousey. In judo, they stand so erect. And in judo, you used to be able to attack the legs. And a lot of people don't realize this, but in 2010, the IJF, which is the governing body of American Judo, and international, they banned hands on the leg from a standing position. Okay, so in other words, Dan Severn tells a story every time I do wrestling clinics with him. When he gathers everybody together, he's a big talker and tells a lot of stories. And he always tells a story, because it's a wrestling clinic, about when he won a national championship in judo just using wrestling, and they handed him a black belt. They handed him a black belt. So in 2010, judo created this rule. So in other words, you could still do trips and you could still do, standing trips and standing leg sweeps and stuff like that. But you could not put your hand on the legs from the standing position. And that rule was done just strictly to keep wrestlers from coming in, unbelted wrestlers from coming in and just completely dominating judo. And jiu-jitsu is kind of the same way. It relates. That's why I wanted to interrupt. I didn't mean to interrupt, but interject that because it's the same way, with jiu-jitsu and all these rules you're talking about.
Wow, that's really sad.
Did you know that? Did you know that about judo? Like most people don't know about that.
I had no idea. That is why.
Yeah, because back when I was doing judo, and this goes back to freaking 1995. Me and my buddy Dave and our other buddy, one of our other buddies, Spiro, we used to go into this dojo, and just basically just wreck the guys because we were in better condition, and we could attack their legs. But it was judo is very kind of ceremonial and protective, Now, if they did their deal where it was basically like standing collar and elbow, and the way they locked their hand, a lot of times they would catch you because they were tricky, and they relied a lot on grabbing onto the cloth. But if you could rip away and shoot on their legs, you could beat them all day long. So wrestlers were dominating in judo, and that's why they came up with that rule. So it relates to the jiu-jitsu. It's kind of the same way.
Sounds familiar, yeah. Absolutely. Because, obviously, as a catch wrestler, I'm not going to go into a BJJ guy's game. If I go into their game, I'm going to lose. And when someone gets on their butt and scoots towards me, you best believe I'm going to back up and create angles and grab their legs and find an avenue to not fall into their lap. But most big BJJ tournaments, they literally, with their rule set, they force you to play their game.
Of course, yeah.
And that is why, because they don't want. My best guess is when you get a wrestler who knows Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and is prepared for it, but sticks with his wrestling roots, in a straight grappling match, the BJJ guy is going to get beat. And I guess you're right. If they're doing that with judo, they're doing it with BJJ because you're right. They do want to protect their sacred form and their martial art. That's what they're doing. It's
a difference between sports and martial arts, so to a large degree. Because I never really liked martial arts. I always kind of found it. It's kind of cheesy, and foreign and all that. But sport is different, and wrestling was just a sport like football. It was just a sport you do growing up, and right. I think that the people that gravitated towards martial arts, honestly, at least my generation, were a lot of the pussies. Let's be honest. With their fucking Chinese swords and Chinese stars and all that, they were basically like pencil neck pussies, a lot of them.
Well, I know quite a few. My brother, of which even is a kung fu master, and they're serious. They're not in for it for the competition. Someone like my brother loves the art. He's in love with the art and the discipline of the art. But I put my hands on him before. I put my hands on him before in a playful manner, man, and he does that Chinese wushu, and it's no joke. But what it is purely self-defense. If someone attacks one of those guys on the street, they're in big trouble. But yeah, like you, I prefer sport where two guys prepare for a fight. But yeah, I went to school with a lot of guys who were took up martial arts, and most of the time I'd think to myself, if they got into a fight, they'd be in some serious shit.
Yeah, did you ever see the thing on The Simpsons where the guy comes to Homer's house and he lays on his back and he comes in the front, like, foyer of the house, and he lays on his back, and he says, "Prepare to fight me," and he kicks those legs up like he's inviting Homer to come into his guard.
No, but that's...
Oh, dude, I got to send you that, bro. You got to see that. You got to share that on your Facebook, on your social media.
If the Simpsons creators are poking fun at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters pulling guards, you got to know that there's a problem there. That is hysterical. You have to send me that clip.
Yeah, it's funny, man. You got to see it.
Hey, I got to see that clip now. I got to see that clip now myself. I have to see that one.
You haven't seen that yet, Brian?
I have to see that one now because it's like what Curran just said. If the Simpsons creators are poking fun at this, your sport and the people within have an issue.
That's too funny, man. There were some funny memes. There were some funny memes of two dudes in a street, and one guy was like, "Come at me, bro," and he went right to his butt and scooted towards the other guy, and the other guy ran away screaming like a girl. It was hilarious.
Yeah, this was a big Homer, man. This guy's got a beef with Homer, and he comes to his house and he wants to settle it, and he's been studying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so he flops to his back. And the funniest thing is when they pan out and they see, like, everyone around, like Homer's family and stuff, that their expressions are like, "What's wrong with this guy?"
Oh, it's too funny. Yeah, I'm looking that up right after we get off the phone.